right.
Like I'm accepting my fate.
What? The TikTok?
The TikTok's
Okay.
accepting it.
All right. So let me explain the TikTok really quick for those of you that did not do them last year in AP Euro. So traditionally, what I have had students do over the long haul of my teaching APUSH, very beginning, was they created like a brochure, like what you would pick up, a pamphlet, like you would pick up, walking through Basler's, join the abolitionist movement or help pets now. So then I morphed into, when we started getting technology, I morphed into digital presentation. And then because last year, Delaney Graves sent me 8 million TikToks every day that were absolutely hilarious. I'm like, I got to do something with these TikToks because they're hilarious. So that's what you're doing. So you are creating, but you do not have to use the TikTok app. I would actually prefer that you not do that and that you just use Screencastify on your Chromebook. You do have editing features on that. As those of you that have watched my video, you know that you can put stuff all in there. If you have better ways to do it on your phone, if you've got a better way to do that, the only thing I ask is that you are able, however you record that you're able to upload it to Google Drive, because that's what we'll do. We'll put it all in a Google folder, and then we'll use that for study material, listening to that. The other thing I added this year, because my APUSH kids, some of them, maybe because they hate that assignment, I don't know, they were so short. So I think I did put a time limit to put in there so that you make it a little bit longer so that it actually has some information to it. Does that help? Okay. So I will put a special turn in for just that will turn it into a Google Drive that everybody will be able to access. So everyone will be able to see them then. Okay. I can't wait to see Logan's. Last year in AP Euro, did you see it? Yeah. It was pretty special. It's pretty special. So I'm hoping he brings the same heat to the next one. Yes. Yes, it's recording. Logan, everybody says hi. Carly says hi. We all say hi. He what?
I was looking for his card this morning.
Oh.
I wanted to see who gets here first, because they're both around late.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. Can you hear that, Logan? Okay. I know it feels weird. And I really hope Monday, November 30th, we're back. We're not red. We can go back to the regular schedule. I know it's not fun for you guys, and it's really not fun for me either. So, all right.
The TikTok's not due till after.
What?
The TikTok isn't due until after.
Oh no, yeah, that's on that calendar. It's not due until the 3rd. So you have plenty of time to work on it. So, and then Monday, I moved the SAQ to Monday, mostly because of yesterday, their ASVAB taking so long. But it will be online. Again, you need to take it before 11:59, because I'm already telling you what it is about. It will be that political cartoon that so many of you messed up on the test. It's the one where Andrew Jackson is in the robe with he's King Andrew. That was not a positive political cartoon about Andrew Jackson. It was a very negative political cartoon about Andrew Jackson. Very, very negative. So make sure that you take a look at that. And let me just say this overall. When we go, if that was a bad Freudian slip. If we go virtual, the only real quizzes that I will make due on time and have a strict due date and time period will be SAQs. Not that you guys will tell all your friends and enemies what the topic is, but that's the only way that I can hold that close, is by making an actual due date. So that will be the only one that actually has a timestamp that I will make it unavailable at a certain time, which means if you don't take it, you will get a 0. 15 points isn't going to kill your grade, but it's the only way that I can kind of hold that topic close at hand. I'm telling you the topic for the one on Monday, so I don't really care what time you take it. And I'm not that picky about your quizzes. I ask that you try to take it before a certain time, but If you can't, I understand. So, all right. So we are finishing up. I kind of got stuck in the middle of talking about turnpikes. Highway 40, I'm at the bottom of page 7. Highway 40 that runs through Terre Haute is that first national road that's built. And the reason these roads are being built is because they're making people money. It's that capitalistic endeavor that people see a connection with. If I put my capital and my money and my entrepreneurship into something, I will get a profit in return. So while Clay's American system with those internal improvements does not work for the federal government, eventually entrepreneurs and capitalists see there's big money to be made in building these roads. At the top of page 8, freight carrying became cheaper. European immigrants are going to move west, and land values are going to increase as a result of that. Number 4 and number 5 really are what's going to happen kind of in a later as we get more closer to this term called manifest destiny, and it's the Conestoga's wagons. And they are 20 feet long, which isn't really that long, about 4 feet deep, very, very uncomfortable. And they will be like wagons on the road. And they'll be moving west, and people will put stuff in them. They're very uncomfortable. In 1797, a traveler in New York counted 500 wagons a day rolling out west. In our next chapters, we'll hit Manifest Destiny, and that will be when we'll start talking about the Oregon Trail. And then eventually in 1860, the Pony Express will be established to carry mail. That 2,000 miles from Missouri to California, that Missouri is typically St. Louis or Independence, Missouri. It isn't going to last long. It's only going to last about 2 years because of the explosion of the telegraph and Morse code, and there's no need for that. My favorite thing about the Pony Express is the advertisement for the Pony Express and what they were looking for. They were looking for, this is their words exactly, scrawny, wiry, young boys, preferably orphaned. That was their typeset. And why orphaned? Because if you get killed by those Indians that are looking to kill you, who cares? But that's my favorite advertisement for the Pony Express. It is fairly one of the things that people think is iconic to the American West, but hopefully those of you that remember world history, we know that there were lots of those ancient civilizations that established Pony Expresses way before this was brought into the American West. So that's what's going to happen on land, right? We're going to build roads. We're going to make profits on roads, but still the best way to move your goods and products to market is on the water. And initially, nearly all water travel are done by flat boats. This will be one of the many ways Abraham Lincoln makes his way in the world, being and working on a flat boat. So it's a flat boat, a raft. We pile everything up on top of it. And the reason we have to use those is we have to get back up the river. So we can get down the river fairly easy, but now you've got to turn around and come back. And for most of these people, and you need to think about this movement of goods just like you do semi-trucks. Semi-trucks, the goal is to never be empty. Never, ever travel with your semi empty. So if I'm dropping off a load, if I'm leaving Terre Haute and I'm going to St. Louis to drop off a load, my goal is to pick up something in St. Louis that I can drop on the way back, because that trip, if from St. Louis to Terre Haute, cost me money. So the same thing with these flatboats. If I'm sailing a farmer's goods down to New Orleans, when I come back home, my goal is to put something on that boat to take back home so I can make money. The problem is, of course, is how do you get back up a river on a flat boat? And that's why they have to be flat. And that's why they have those big, long poles that they pull the boat back up river. And they'll use other means necessary. Again, difficulty moving on the Mississippi. In parts of it, it's very, very deep. Other parts dries up. So we're trying to find better ways to move up and down the river. And that will be fixed. And I would put a big star by E2 or something to draw the attention to the steam engine on Robert Fulton's Clermont. When Mr. Clermont puts this steam engine on this riverboat, it can now go up and downstream which is significant. We can now navigate water upstream where we couldn't before, and obviously in a much quicker way without a lot of needed labor. So it changed all of America's streams into two-way arteries. It instantly drastically changes the river transportation, which is, again, the most cost-efficient way to move stuff. The carrying capacity of rivers doubled. In 1820, we had 60 steamboats on the Mississippi. By 1860, we have 1,000. So it becomes a major way to move goods. Water is still the major way. If you're traveling south and you go down Highway 41 into Kentucky, and you look in the Mississippi, there will be barges as far as you can see. We used to grade AP exams in Louisville, and our hotel was right on the water, and watching those barges just move constantly, all kinds of things, cars, coal. So that, again, will be significant in a change with that steamboat. The next part of water is water's not everywhere. And how can we move water everywhere and control water everywhere? We're going to build canals. And probably the most important canal that in this process is the Erie Canal. And the Erie Canal is in upstate New York. Terre Haute also has an Erie Canal, the Erie and Wabash Canal, which always kind of confused me in a history class when they were talking about it, because they're like, I was in a geography class, and they're like, we're going to go out and walk the Erie Canal. I'm like, excuse me, what? Where are we doing that at? So there were canals, and those canals are over by the campus of ISU because of the grain processing. That was where Clabber Girl is, and Maugers and all that stuff. That was where farmers took their stuff to be made into their corn to be made into grain, or their grain to make whatever you do. I don't know. Mash it into something else, and then would float it on the river. Canals are really important. They link things, and the important one with the Erie Canal is it's linking the Great Lakes, which the Great Lakes, except for, St. Lawrence Seaway is not built. The Great Lakes are landlocked. So how can we get those Great Lakes out? We're going to build a canal to the Hudson River. And in that aspect, we allow much more movement on water. The project is supported by the New York governor. And again, this is going to be paid for by entrepreneurs. So the impact of the Erie Canal, the cost to ship grain from Buffalo to New York fell from $100 to $5. If I'm a farmer, my profit instantaneously goes up for no other reason that it doesn't cost me that much to ship my grain. Shipping time is going to be reduced. Land values will skyrocket. New cities, Rochester, Syracuse. And then because of this, New York becomes the fastest growing and wealthiest city. And then on top of page 9, Great Lake towns are going to explode. Just tremendous growth along those Great Lakes. Cleveland, Detroit, Chicago, and negative aspects, New England farmers are going to be adversely impacted by competition. And that's what New England has been fearing, right? New England has put up stoppers every which way that they can in order to prevent this movement west. I kind of skipped over the part on page 8 under the canal. State riders prevented federal aid. New York paid this entire cost. And again, that's part of that whole New England thing. With that states' rights. And we need to really make sure that we're paying attention to that term states' rights, because it's going to float back and forth. It's going to be used by every state anytime they want something that they want to do. It will be used very hypocritical, because in one time they'll be anti-states' rights. The next time they'll be pro-state rights. We'll also look at that term because that will be something that will be augmented against the Civil War in the early 1900s. One of the difficulties of fighting a war in which the sole purpose is to continue to enslave people is when you lose that war, how do you make that all right in your head? And one of the ways that our country tried to make that all right in people's heads was to try and circumvent that the Civil War was really about states' rights, which it isn't. Because if it was about states' rights, this was one of the times I got sent to the principal's office 3 times in my life. And all 3 times happened in one class period with one U.S. history coach who, I shouldn't say that, he was a U.S. history teacher / coach. And it happened in the lovely state of North Carolina when I would question, if it was about states' rights, then why didn't Vermont and New Hampshire join in? Because surely those little T states wanted states' rights against large federal. Miss Payton, take yourself down to the office, please. I'm like, okay, I'm down to the office again. 3 times I got sent to the office by him for simply questioning the way he was teaching the war between the states, because that's what it was called, the war between the states. So, and then lastly, as we look at transportation, we're going to look at railroads. Again, most significant aspect will be railroads. However, we are not going to get real impact of the railroads until after the Civil War. They're really in their infancy. They're still trying to figure out how they're going to function. Fast, reliable, cheaper. The first one, and any of you that play Monopoly know the B&O Railroad is built in 1828. By 1860, we have 30,000 miles. One of the problems with the railroads, again, is everybody's building their own railroad. So this Baltimore and Ohio Railroad went from Baltimore to Ohio. And one of the problems with the railroad is the gauge of the length of, the width of the rails. Everyone was building them differently. Every train was set differently. So trains couldn't just automatically hop onto another set of tracks, which, thinking about it, is very weird, right? The B&O Railroad only had a certain gauge, and only that kind of train could go on that. So it takes a while for everyone to kind of get the idea that we need to build these tracks with the same standards so that we can move these railroads. The opposition to railroads are going to be immense. Every single other transportation is against railroads. Canals, turnpikes, tavern keepers, everybody that made money with transportation hates the railroad, hates it, because they see the opportunity and the value of a railroad versus their other transportations. And they are correct. They are correct. The railroad's going to take everything apart. And this is what we're heading to on page 9, a box around H. By the Civil War, a national market economy has emerged. The North, West, and South specialized in certain economic activities. Transportation is going to connect all 3 of them. And we no longer have self-contained local economies. We now have a national economy. That's a good thing. That's a positive thing. That's a great impact for these new United States. So, what are these regional specialities? I put East because I think your textbook always calls it East. I always say the North. So I'm sorry if I make you confused, but it's the same. I thought maybe I would keep it and call it Northeast because it is really the Northeast. But you need to know the makeup of these regions. It is vitally important for this chapter, but it's really going to be important as we move into the Civil War, and how these regions and the impact of these regions, what they have on the Civil War. So the North is industrial, and that will be certainly check plus positive when we get ready to fight a war. The fact that you have industry, that you can build war equipment, is essential. They made machines, they made textiles. By 1861, they owned 81% of the United States industrial capacity. And when we get to the Civil War, we're going to make little charts about all these things. And one of the things that you have to try and what we have to wrap our heads around is when we look on paper, why in the heck did the South think they were going to win the war? Why would you even begin an endeavor that on paper clearly shows that you will be defeated? Clearly shows there's one thing that's going to make them think they can win. Most populous region. It always helps when you're fighting a war that you have a lot of people, because you need a lot of people. 70% of manufacturing workers are in that area. Okay, so the South, cotton for export to New England and Britain, and slavery. Their exports made up over 70% of the United States exports. That's why they thought they would win, because they export more than anybody else. And the problem is nobody bought their exports. Why? Because of slavery. B2, I would highlight that, draw circles, arrows, resisted change. I will tell you that is something that is ingrained in Southern DNA. They do not like change at all. I can tell you that this Southern person who's 100% DNA is Southern, North Carolina and Texas. I hate change. I hate it. It drives me nuts. Don't move my stuff around. Don't look at my stuff. Don't change my schedule. Just so that you know, 2 years ago, my schedule changed. Dr. Jenkins called me in June to let me know that in August, my schedule was going to change. And she did it very gently and very nicely. She tried to just chat me up. I know she's calling for a reason. I'm like, okay, just lay the bomb on me. What's going to happen? Okay, Mrs. Norris, we're going to have to change your schedule. And even this year, when ACT was first, I think I was probably one of the first ones she called it that too, because it's change. I don't like it. Southerners don't like change. Now, I can roll with other change, but it's my personal change that I don't like. Southerners are going to resist every change that comes along, especially anything that changes their ideology and their way of life. So it should not be lost on you. The last place, even though there is the vast majority of African Americans in the South, the last place where they're going to have any kinds of opportunities economically, educationally, it's going to be there. Don't like change. Some industrial growth, but never exceeded 2% value. West, nation's breadbasket. We got food. And when you have food, you have bargaining chips. And that will be what the West will have. Grain and livestock, fastest growing population. So now that we have these 3 distinctive groups, we also need to think of them politically as distinctive groups. And the pivot point in this relationship is the West. Sometimes the West will side with the South. Sometimes the West will side with the North, which then makes the North and the South always courting the West, always trying to be in a relationship with the West. Does that make sense? And the West knows that, and they use it to their advantage. So that is where we're going to be, and it will be why, at the bottom of page 9, the South will be isolated. The South will be isolated as a result of the most important thing that comes out, and please, please, please put this down and make it jog your memory. The most important thing that came out of those early new nations, Articles of the Confederation, those Northwest land ordinances that said no slavery above the Ohio River. That's what keeps the West in the corner with the North, is slavery. Pure and simple. The idea of enslaving people. The second part of that is lots and lots of Germans come to this area. Germans are abolitionists, strong abolitionists. They understand nothing about a country that enslaves people. Doesn't mean, and again, that word abolitionist means to abolish slavery. It does not mean equality. We're a long way from equality. Ooh, I just want to finish page 10. If we finish page 10 today, I'll be good. So the social results of industrialization. Division of labor, work more specialized, and now we are going to work at home less. And what happens to the home radically will change the lives of women. Because look at A1, women's work no longer viewed as valuable. And now the home is not an economic production. Now it becomes a refuge. It becomes the soft place to land. And whose job is it to make it the soft place to land? The woman. And so we established this thing called the cult of domesticity. It is not the same as Republican motherhood. Two different terms, both centered around women. Republican motherhood means women are charged with raising good citizens. We're not going to talk about that one hardly anymore. We're going to get stuck in this cult of domesticity for the next 200 years. This is the Martha Stewarting of your house. It's one thing if you want to Martha Stewart your house for yourself, but it's another thing if that is expected and the expectation. And it will, again, give this idea that everything in the house belongs to women. The housework, the children, the cooking, the cleaning, it's all belongs to the women. And for the most part, is not valued by any sector of the economic society, right? None. And we'll lead to that. Growth of cities, I'm going to come back to that cult of domesticity in a minute. Growth of cities, by the 1790s, 5% of the population live in cities. By 1860, 25%. And so we're rapidly, again, moving from Thomas Jefferson's agrarian societies to Alexander Hamilton's industrialized nation. By the turn of the century, 100 years after this fight between Hamilton and Jefferson, Hamilton wins. The bad side of all of this is the stratification between the rich and poor. And remember, stratification is layers. So how far apart are we going to be in this rich and poor part? It's going to be huge. And it's only going to grow huger, if that's a word. Is huger a word? More huge? Hugest? I don't know. Bigger. I know that one. By the time we get to the end of the 19th century and the height of the Gilded Age, there will be single solitary men like J.P. Morgan that has more money than the United States government. More money than the government. He will loan the government money and he will make them come to his bank. President of the United States is going to come to J.P. Morgan's bank and sit across this table and say, we need to borrow some money. And then J.P. Morgan will say, what can you do for me? Because that's what happens when you got that much money. As I'm saying that, please look at two. U.S. provided more opportunities than Europe. Always, always, always. It's what draws people here. It's what still draws people here. And it is the bright spot in this conversation. Wages are only going to raise, please look, from 1820 to 1860, wages rise 1%. 1%. 1%. 1%. That's outrageous. 1%. Immigration accounted for the largest population increase again. And then our foreign commerce. Commerce is business. So the business that we do with foreign people, only about 7%. We're still isolating ourselves. We're still an internal economy. Cotton is 50% of our U.S. exports. And eventually that's going to happen, that we're going to export agricultural goods. So, all right, I'm going to go back up to this cult of domesticity. I think it's Hulu. I think that's does anybody get Hulu? There is the most awesome miniseries on Hulu called Mrs. America. It's way ahead of our time period. It takes place in the 70s. It's about the Equal Rights Amendment with Phyllis Schlafly and her campaign to kill and end the Equal Rights Amendment, while Gloria Steinem and Bella Abzug and everyone else is working for the Equal Rights Amendment. It is awesome. It is a mini series. I think there's like 8 of them, but I guarantee once you go start watching it, You will not stop watching it. It is awesome. It's amazing. It's maybe something for you to watch over this long week. It's called Mrs. America. I promise it's good. It's worth your time. If you have Netflix, and actually, I think I'm going to try to do this one, even though there's a bunch of bad words in it. Show this at next movie night. Next movie night. I hate that we had to cancel, but I felt better canceling because I didn't want to be that next extracurricular activity that caused a COVID spread. But even though I think we're pretty good about not sitting next to each other. But on Netflix, let me see if I can remember the name of it. I think it's called the Chicago 8. It's about the Democratic Convention and the arrest of Tom Hayden, Bobby Seale, Abby Hoffman. It's excellent. Excellent. It's about the 1968 Democratic Convention. Students are protesting in the city against the who's going to be nominated for the Democratic presidential nominee. It's excellent. It's just a quick movie, but it's so good. It's really, really good. So if you have a few minutes, you should watch it. All right. So bye, people. Yes, ma'am. There is no voices. Yeah, there are no voices for this chapter, except the voice in your head saying do your homework, and Mrs. North's voice in your head saying do your homework. All right. Bye, people.